Uh, Firstly, let's call this what this is. Trump turning his back on years of scientific research, rolling back important efforts to deal with the buildup of greenhouse gases that legions of scientists all agree are leading to climate change. So where does this leave the United States?
Yeah, well, of course, don't look for any policy coherence here or any rationality. That shouldn't be expected. But the part that's most bizarre here is the claim that this is going to save anyone in the US money or that this is going to help US industries. That part is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, first, just to say, as your guest just said, this is going to be tied up in litigation for a long time. So we're just at the beginning. We're nowhere near knowing what the outcomes are. But the worst thing for industries is regulatory uncertainty. And here we are again, companies that have invested in efficiency, in electrification and fuel standards, also to comply with foreign standards and foreign expectations. And now we're throwing them for a loop again. So this is worse for industry. It's bad for consumers. It's hard to know what the logic is here.
You know, I want to get to the financial aspects in just a second, Lisa, but let's focus on the legal challenges, what this is going to mean and for the immediate future, and how do you see these legal challenges playing out? Because California, I'm sure, already has a whole host of attorneys working to keep their very stringent climate measures in place.
Yeah, this is going to be challenged in many places by many lawyers. And I'm a lawyer. My background is in law. I can tell you these processes, first of all, I appreciate law and I appreciate the tools, but they're going to take a long time. So we're going to be locked up in regulation for a long time. It's a possibility this will reach the Supreme Court, but not for many months, probably not until next year. So that's a lot of legal uncertainty. And meanwhile, by the way, it's not only the legal challenges, but other jurisdictions within the US also have regulatory competencies over areas that are relevant. Cities and states do. Never mind, by the way, the sheer economics that is driving, that is making lower emission and more efficient systems in general,
Right.
both industries and automakers more efficient. So so I think we're not going to know the outcome of this for a long time, but it's not going to be what the administration expects.
Okay, so how significant is this move? Because Trump already pulled the United States out of the Paris Climate Accord twice. Explain what the world right now thinks of the Trump administration and really the U.S. as a whole moving forward, because it's quite embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. That is true. The difference between the Paris Agreement and at least this attempt is that this is an attempt to attack the foundational regulation on which many greenhouse gas regulations are built. That's what makes this an extraordinary or a more significant effort, I would say, than other efforts that have rolled back specific standards or rules. This is a challenge to the foundational regulatory basis on which most of those regulations were based. So that's what makes this more significant. What is the rest of the world thinking? Well, most of the rest of the world, by the way, first of all, is fundamentally moving on with a climate-aligned agenda. They're aligning regulation, industrial policy, and market demand. We are just losing ground. And in a global world, industry can go where the rules are more stable, where the markets are more stable, where all of these are aligned. So I think the world, well, I'm sad for the United States to be so out of step with where the world is going. But I think the rest of the world is not following the U.S. down this path.
And also, Lisa, the White House claims more than $1 trillion in savings. You talked about it a minute ago. It is almost laughable when you look at the cost of punishing hurricanes, wildfires fueled by drought, and dramatically changing winds. And I wonder what the U.S. insurance industry thinks of all this. Ask people in Florida or California who simply can't get insurance right now.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, first of all, I think we all take these claims with a grain of salt at this point, but probably what they're even alluding to, by the way, which who knows, are the compliance costs, possibly the costs that the industries face in complying with regulations. I seriously doubt they are counting the things you're absolutely right to be counting, which are not only the extraordinarily expensive costs of climate change, but also fuel savings for consumers, public health benefits from reduced co-pollutants, and then the economic cost of regulatory uncertainty, because that carries an economic cost too for the industries, the cost of capital and other innovation and other costs. So there are a lot of costs that are not at all counted in the White House's ridiculous estimate.
And Lisa, not a lot of time left, but for years, China was always vilified for its environment. How things have changed. Look at where China is right now in terms of renewable energy. Beijing's skies are much bluer these days, and the UN has recognized China's efforts to rehabilitate its environmental policies. Compare and contrast the two nations.
Can I just say with absolute pleasure, I just came back from China about a week ago. I was in Beijing and Shanghai. Anyone who hasn't been there should go and actually see things with their own eyes. It's absolutely remarkable. It is a step into the future. As you said, not only have they absolutely transformed at rapid clip their own country, which is huge, but now they're bringing those new technologies, those more efficient technologies, and the financing to the rest of the
Right.
region and their neighbors. So they're a remarkable leader, and it's a pleasure to work with them.